more could you want? What more is there than that? So, we all know about blind spots when we're driving. There's just things, you just can't see everything from the driver's seat. And every car has some sort of blind spot. And so what you do is you look in the rear view mirror, look in the side view mirror, and then if it's going to change lanes, especially you look over and you check those blind spots. Because you can't see what you can't see. And so you have to be intentional about checking on the blind spots. Well, there are also emotionally blind spots that we have in life. Things like discouragement, things like anxiety, things like fear that sort of sneak up on us and we bump into and go, oh, I didn't know that was there. And things that can become just as destructive in our life as if you miss a blind spot driving. And one of those emotions today that just lives in people's blind spots constantly is that of anger. We began talking about that before Easter, and we're going to continue to talk about that for the next couple of weeks. But let me try and give you a little bit more, I guess, potent analogy. It's one I've given before, but it so applies here too. And that's how, as Christians, we're all prone to drift. It just happens. And we just take that one little small step and one little small step and one little small step. And this drifting, I'm telling you, it's something that I've come to fear. I've come to fear because I'm afraid that I'll wake up one day and there'll be this whole dark side of my life. Or I'm afraid I'll wake up one day and need my faith and it's gone. And I fear over this because I've seen it happen to so many people. And if it was sudden, we would notice. We would understand it. Other people would see that. But it's not like that. It's just a slow, long process. In fact, people can drift away from God. They look perfectly normal the way they've always looked. They're in church every Sunday. But inside, there's this drift that's going on. And there's huge areas where we have drifted away from God today. And one of those is certainly porn. That's the big one that people just sort of drift into. That it sort of just captures them and creates this whole dark side of their life. But the other one is anger. We live in a culture consumed by anger. Consider this. This grandmother in Lee County, Florida, calls the sheriff's department to come to her house because these two cousins are fighting. Justin Garcia gets arrested and charged with aggravated battery. He not only hit his cousin, he took out his knife and stabbed him. Why? Because this argument over which is better, whole milk or almond milk. Yes. Any preferences here? Anybody feel that strongly about it? But what the sheriff's department did when they put their mugshot in his own social media, they do that sort of stuff down there. They put above it, got milk, and down below it, it said, talking about Justin crying over spilt milk because his choice wasn't validated. But here are people going to jail now, arrested, going to jail. Why? Over milk. What are you in for? In prison. I murdered this guy, I stole this stuff. I stand up for almond milk, and I'm tough about it. But it's even stupid little stuff, foolish little stuff. And it's all in our culture. We all know what it's like to be angry for a moment, but there are people that they live in that whole state of mad. It's consumed our culture. We even have these different categories of anger. Let's look at them real quick. Right here, the spewers, the stewers, and the leakers. The spewers, we all know what they're like, right? They're the ones with the hot temper, short fuse, put their fist to the wall, stand up, and boy, they yell. And they just say, well, I just had to vent, and I feel better. We all know them. The stewers, These are the ones that's like that pot on the stove. It looks like just regular water in it, but really it's almost a boiling point, but not quite there. It just stays stewing there. And there are people, it's like that in their lives. Constantly, they're staying in this state of frustration. It may be a person, it may be a circumstance, but they constantly stay frustrated, almost to the boiling point, but not quite. But then there's this other category. This is the big one, the leakers. These are the sarcastic type of people. These are the ones who are passive aggressive. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Criticism. They've got lots of, there's a whole lot of symptoms of this. Grumbling and complaining, jumping to conclusions. But there's no big outburst. It's just a slow leak, like battery leaking acid, just a slow leak. So, being as honest as you can be today, how many of you are spewers? You just spew it out. How many of you are stewers? You just sit there in high frustration. How many of you are leakers? Okay. How many of you are lying because you didn't raise your hand for any of the other three? All right. Are you all three? Okay, all right. Now the spewers, those who just, you got to spew it out. There's no easy way to break this to you, but God's got a name for you, and it's not a very pleasant name. Here we go. A fool, that's his name, just spews it out, gives vent to his anger, but a wise person will hold it in check. So a fool is one who just said, I got to let this out. It's coming out. We read this also in Proverbs. A quick-tempered person acts foolishly. He does foolish things. That's what somebody who is a spewer, that's what they will do. They just said, well, I just have to vent. And when I vent, though, I feel so much better. But all the damage that you can do, the relationships you can destroy. The spewers, this is what you see that destroys so many marriages. Because usually it's over something just minor, very minor. And the couples will stew about it. They'll go to bed in fighting position, where he's facing this wall and she's facing that wall. And none of their body parts are going to ever meet in the middle. In fact, if a foot accidentally goes over there and crosses over and touches him, you jerk that foot back. You're not getting any toe tonight. No toe tonight at all. Love does not keep a record of wrongs. But those stewers, they keep a record. And they replay it over and over and over again. And then the leakers. The thing about that is they're not going to put a fist to the wall like a spewer will. But they're just going to leak out. That passive-aggressive sarcasm, little critical remarks, or remarks of just grumbling and complaining and things like that, they just sort of leak it out. But boy, does it cause damage. And this is of the three different categories, this is the one that brings the most fear in me when I see those leakers. Here's what we read about in Numbers. Oh, we went the wrong way. Okay. The demon is back in here. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, how long must I endure this evil community that keeps complaining about me? I've heard the Israelites' complaints that they make against me. Your corpses will fall in the wilderness, all of you who were registered in the census, the entire number of you 20 years old and more, because you have complained about me. It's this group. It just sort of leaks out. These people are complaining, and all of a sudden it goes to the whole crowd of them. They don't look so dangerous on the outside, these leakers don't, but I'm telling you, they're deadly. They're deadly. You're going to all fall down dead because of this, God says, because of your complaining. And not only complaining, but the leakers, they're the ones that also will jump to conclusions, will make assumptions. This lady named Sarah who lived in New York, she got an anonymous letter that said, "Take down your Christmas lights, it's Valentine's Day." What they didn't know is that since the beginning of the year, her father and her aunt, she was caring for them. They were both sick, and they both died of COVID. Now she's trying to take care of all the legal matters that comes when those deaths takes place. So she gets on to Facebook for the community, and she says, "My dad and my aunt just died. As soon as I get these legal matters taken care of, I will take down my Christmas lights, I promise." Well, now they feel bad, right? So what happened next is pretty cool thing. People, they started bringing her gift certificates so she could go out and just get a meal. Wouldn't have to worry about fixing the meal. Gift cards to go eat. Would start running errands for her. And the whole neighborhood put their Christmas lights back up. Yeah. A good result, but leakers also cause a lot of damage. They don't put their fist to the wall. But boy, by their stonewalling and their cold attitude of complaining and griping, things are difficult. They're like a silent assassin. They don't make much noise, but boy, bodies are going to fall. Because of just the little comments, this kind of grumbling, complaining, and all these things. It just happens. So there's the outward form of anger, the spewers. That's the anger that's sort of wrongly expressed. You know, when you kick the wall, when you knock over the table, how's that work for you when you just have to yell? How's that working for you? Or then there's the anger that's usually never really expressed, but it's just always stay frustrated. Those stewers that are always a little bit there. But then there's those leakers that just sort of like battery acid, they just sort of leaking this stuff out. It's always kind of just flowing, just leaking out. Little things here or there, little attitudes here or there. It's always leaking out and eating up people all around them. And whichever form your anger takes, people who have anger, they always present themselves as a victim. It's always somebody else's fault. It's because of what they said. It's because of what they did. That's why I'm so angry. And that's why they then may begin using the term, "I have a righteous anger. I have a right to be angry. It's a good angry. Because really, I'm just a victim here. I'm the one that's had to put up with what these people did." We talked about this a few weeks ago. We don't assign any other destructive act to anger. We don't go, "I've got a righteous lust. This is just the way God made me, so it's a righteous lust." We don't go, "This is just a righteous greed I have. I just have to have more and more stuff because God's given me this desire for more. So it's a righteous greed." Or, "This is a righteous gluttony that I have. I just got to eat everything up for the glory of God." It's a righteous gluttony. But when it comes to anger, James 1:20, anger never brings about the righteousness that God desires. And every time we see anger mentioned, we are told one thing to do. No matter how right the anger seems, we are told, get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Which means it's a choice. You can get rid of it. But I can't help it. No, don't tell me you can't help it. You don't want to help it. Because it's a choice. You can get rid of it. Don't tell me you can't control your anger. You can. You can get rid of it. It's a choice. Your anger, whether you're a spewer, a stewer, or a leaker, it's your choice. You can do it. And so let me ask this question. How effective is your anger? How effective is it? Does your anger make you more Christ-like? Does your anger draw you closer to God? Does your anger bring about a joy in your life? Does your anger point other people to Jesus? Do other people see your anger and they want that grace and love that Jesus has because of your anger? Does anger help bring your marriage together and make it a more Christ-like marriage? Does your anger give you a life that your kids want to emulate? Boy, I just want to be a passive-aggressive, complaining person, put my fist to the wall person like my mom, like my dad. We're told to get rid of it because it will destroy your life. We talked about this too. The first part of Genesis, where Cain is angry, and God says, "Why are you angry? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? But if you do not do well, sin." Sin. That's what he calls this anger. Sin is crouching at your door, but you must master it. When I say we live in a culture, we live in a Christian culture that's defined by anger also. It's not just out in the world, it's in the Christian culture. And we want to defend it. It's a sin. We'll talk more about that next week. Because it keeps God from working in our lives. Researchers have said this, that there is, and this is hard to believe, and I understand that, but they say there are 34,000 different emotions a person can have. And how much research is behind that, I'm not sure. But what they've done is they can group about, maybe about a dozen or maybe even 24 emotions, and how those emotions, when you take 24 and you mix them together and you throw them out, then you can come up with a big number. I realize that. So we can go with that or not. But there are just some basic emotions that people have. Happiness, sadness, fear, anger, just some basic emotions that people have. But here's the thing that they can prove, and the Bible proves this also, that emotions are very contagious. Daniel Goldman, a researcher, says emotions are more contagious than the flu. And he has this experiment that he does, and he says every time it's come out the same. He'll take 3 people, put them in a room together in a circle or triangle, however 3 people are together in a room, for 2 minutes without saying a word. And he says the one who's most emotionally expressive, who expresses their emotion the most, the other 2 will leave with that emotion. It could be anxiety, it could be happiness, it could be anger, but whatever it is. So knowing this series was coming up, I was aware of this, and so I was with a small group of people. It was more than 3, but it was still a small group of people, and this person began expressing some things that were just sort of a downer type thing, and I watched. And the others in the group just lowered their heads. I could see that they're feeling that emotion. And so when that got done, I said, well, let me try something here. So I just put up like an uplifting type of statement. And sure enough, piped up, and you can see the change. You don't believe emotions are contagious? You live with an angry person and let them come home, and the whole temperature of the home will change because that angry person is now there and they're spewing that anger out. You don't believe emotions are contagious? You just go to the comment section of any news article on the web. You scroll down there because in the comment section, that's where the angry people live, right? And they're expressing that anger constantly through that. And you read those comments, and pretty soon you will start feeling angry. You don't believe it's contagious? What we read about in Israel when the 10 spies come back and they spread their, oh, this will never work attitude, their complaining attitude. It went through the whole nation. The whole nation. All but 2 guys. It spread to everybody but 2 guys. They're contagious. That's what makes leakers so deadly. because they let out that stuff, that attitude, those comments, that grumbling and complaining, and it just spreads. A guy by the name of Bob Merritt. He was pastor for a long time of Eagle Brook Church in Minneapolis. Huge church. He went through a season of life where he began feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and just sort of oppressed and depressed. And anger started slipping in. And not only was it the leaking out, he had an outburst of anger with his family, with his staff. And the senior staff, the senior leadership of the church, they forced him into a year-long process of leadership training with a guy named Fred. Okay? And here's what we read from that. Fred and his assistant interviewed all family members and staff and closest friends with a series of 60 questions, and this is Bob writing this, that essentially asked what's good about Bob and bad about Bob. Their responses were recorded and put into a 200-page document that Fred and his assistants read back to me word for word over a 2-day period. For 2 days, I sat and listened while Fred read statements like, Bob overlooks relationships, lacks interpersonal skills in working with people. Bob doesn't listen well. He doesn't manage staff, and there is no love. Bob is unapproachable and speaks before he thinks. Bob has a love problem, and I know he cares, but he is not gifted in showing it. What really nailed me, he says, is when I heard these words from my son David. My dad is angry a lot. And when Fred read those words to me, he looked up from the page and let them sink into my soul. He repeated over and over again from a variety of people saying, you are experiencing what it's like to be people who are riding in a car that you are driving. It broke me and was the beginning of my new life. But Bob told Fred that he's afraid that he wouldn't be able to change. And Fred told him, look, I've been doing this sort of thing for years. And what I have found out is there's about a 40% success rate. 60% of the people, they go on and they ruin their marriage or their career and things like that. But about a 40% people change. And he said there's one thing that determines whether or not those 40%, whether or not they're going to change or not. And that one thing is humility. Are they humble enough to recognize that this is running their life? Are they humble enough to recognize that anger has consumed them? It all comes down to humility, he said. Now, I know angry people just think I'm being misunderstood. What I am trying to get you to see, that's like God with Cain. He's holding his hand on the door and saying, Cain, you go through this door. Sin is waiting there. It's coming in through your anger, and it's waiting there for you. You have to master this. You have to get rid of it. You have to get this out of your life. And then he lets his hand off the door. He goes, okay, what are you going to do? See, it's real easy to see emotions in the rearview mirror in hindsight, right? Oh, I didn't know it. I didn't realize I was so angry. I didn't realize I was so despondent. I didn't realize I was so discouraged. I didn't realize I had so much worry in me. But all of a sudden, it just came to my life and just came crashing down on me. It's real easy to see that in hindsight. It's different to be humble enough to admit it now and to repent and to surrender. Bob Merritt became one of the most encouraging, life-giving people ever. You can go on his website now. He goes around and helps other pastors as he was helped. He if you go on the website, he'll mention that year of being forced into that training with Fred on there. And my hope is that some of you would do that same thing. Will be humble enough to admit that you live with that anger, that it affects people, And the hardest group to get a hold of, the spewers, that's pretty easy. They see result. They see the hole in the wall. They see their anger. That they yell out. Everybody sees that. The stewers, that high level of frustration, yeah, it's always that they keep themselves up there at that level. And it's easy to know that, yes, I stay constantly frustrated. I mean, always not quite boiling over, but I'm right there at it all the time. But the leakers, they just don't get it a lot of times. And the damage that they cause by their constant passive-aggressive, sarcastic, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that really, it's terrible, and they're complaining, they're grumbling, and they're jumping to conclusions. The damage they cause is tremendous. So, the bottom line here is that if you want to be led by the Spirit, you won't be led by anger. And I know if you're an angry person out there right now, that you're defending your right to be the way that you are. But you don't know, but you don't understand. You have your reasons. But the one, I just can't help it. No, you can. You just don't want to help it. One, I was just raised that way. I don't, whatever they are. God says, get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Which makes it a choice. Because it is, I know you have a different category for it, but it is a sin. It is something that will keep the Holy Spirit from affecting your life. That's why when Paul gives that list in Galatians 5, we'll look over this next week. We'll do this. We'll look through the fruit of the Spirit, and then it goes through the works of the flesh, and it's anger. But the fruit of the Spirit is gentleness. And I know you don't want to go there. I know it hurts to go there. That's why I think that Fred said, the only people that change are the ones who are humble enough to admit they have the issue. So what's that going to do for you today? This could be a joyful day for you. Not only are you going to get out of church 15 minutes early, but you get to change. You get to change what's going on the inside of you. It's a choice you have to make. We're going to sing a hymn invitation. The other choice that you always have here in time of giving invitation is to give your life to Christ, is to surrender to Him and say, I want to become a Christ follower. I want to do that today. And God may be leading you to do that. Maybe you just need to come and kneel down and pray and admit you've got anger. There's always a person that comes to mind or a situation that comes to mind, and you just rehearse that over and over again, and you stew on it. It just stays in your life, or you're one that just leaks it out. But you might just come and pray and confess that to God, and let this be this first step of finding healing from this. So we're going to sing a hymn of invitation as God is leading you to respond in some way. I pray that you will. Let's all stand together.